I used to think wedding planning was supposed to feel like a dream. Chaotic, yes, but beautiful chaos. Pinterest boards, champagne tastings, soft light draped over endless possibilities. For the first few months, it actually did. I could see it so clearly. The aisle lined with flowers. My father's nervous smile, the tremble in my fiancé's voice when he saw me in white. Everything was unfolding just as I'd imagined since I was a little girl sneaking glances at bridal magazines. Then came the conversation. The one that changed everything. It started innocently. We were sitting in bed, laptop open, finalizing our guest list. His hand rested lazily on my thigh, scrolling through names. "Do you think we should invite Mark?" he asked. I froze. Mark, his brother. 32, severely autistic, living in a full-time care facility. I'd met him twice, both times when my mother-in-law had brought him home for the holidays. The first time, he'd screamed for 20 minutes straight when someone dropped a plate. The second time, he'd smashed a picture frame after dinner, cutting his hand in the process. None of it was his fault, of course, but the sheer intensity of his presence was overwhelming. "Do you think he'd be okay?" I asked carefully. My fiancé, let's call him Andrew, hesitated. Mum would want him there. I could already hear the weight in those words. Mum would want him there. Not he would want to be there. Not we want him there. Just obligation. I closed the laptop. "Andrew, it's going to be a big wedding. A lot of people, loud music, lights, crowds. I don't know if that's a good environment for him." He rubbed his face, sighing. "I know, but it's my brother. I can't just—" "I'm not saying we shouldn't care about him," I interrupted softly. "I'm saying maybe this isn't the right setting." He didn't answer for a long time, just stared at his hands, like the answer might appear between them. That night, neither of us slept much. Over the next few days, I couldn't shake the feeling of guilt. Every time I pictured our wedding, the thought of Mark flashed through it like static, a reminder that my peace of mind came at someone else's exclusion. But I also remembered the chaos of those visits. The screaming, the way my mother-in-law's face hardened into practiced calm, her hands trembling behind her back as she whispered, "It's okay, it's okay. He just needs a minute." When Andrew brought it up again, it was with hesitation. "Mum's been asking about Mark's invitation." I tried to steady my voice. "What did you tell her?" "That we're still deciding. Still deciding." As if there were ever going to be an easy decision. I wanted to be the kind of person who could say, "Of course he should come. He's family." But the truth was, I couldn't imagine our vows being interrupted by screams. I couldn't imagine the look on my father's face, or the whispers among guests who didn't understand. More than that, I couldn't imagine Mark himself, frightened, overstimulated, trapped in a room full of people, expecting him to behave like everyone else. So one night, after another long discussion that felt more like a tug-of-war than a partnership, I finally said it. "I think it's best if Mark doesn't come." Andrew's silence was worse than yelling. It was the kind of silence that fills a room with something sharp and invisible. He nodded slowly. "You know Mom's going to hate that. I know." He looked at me for a long moment, searching for something in my face, maybe a trace of doubt, a crack in my resolve. But there wasn't one. I'd rehearsed this in my head too many times. When he finally told her, it was worse than I expected. She called me first. Not Andrew me. Her voice trembled with outrage. You're telling me my son can't come to his own brother's wedding? I'm not saying he can't come, I said, though I suppose that's exactly what I was saying. I just think it might be too much for him. It's a big event, and I'm worried he'd be uncomfortable. You're worried you'd be uncomfortable, she snapped. The words hit harder than I wanted to admit. Do you have any idea, she continued, her voice rising, how much it means for him to be included? He doesn't get to go to weddings. He doesn't get to be part of normal things. You're taking that away from him. I bit my lips so hard I could taste blood. It's not about excluding him. It's about keeping the day peaceful for everyone, including him. Peaceful for you, she repeated, as if the word itself were a sin. The call ended with her saying something that would echo in my mind for weeks. If my younger son isn't invited, neither am I. When I told Andrew, he went pale. She said that. I nodded. He sank onto the couch, running both hands through his hair. God, she'll actually do it too. We sat there for a long time. The quiet between us wasn't just silence anymore. It was the sound of something cracking. Over the next few days, the wedding planning that had once brought joy now felt like walking through a minefield. Every floral arrangement, every song choice, every seating plan, none of it mattered, because it all sat on top of that single, unspoken fracture. Andrew tried to be diplomatic. Maybe we can find a compromise. Like, he could come for part of it. Just the ceremony, but even that felt dangerous. What if something set him off? What if he had a meltdown mid-ceremony in front of 150 guests? I don't want to be looking over my shoulder the whole day, I told him. I don't want to be anxious instead of happy. He didn't argue. He just looked away, like each word was carving something off him, piece by piece. One night, I overheard him on the phone with his mum. He was pacing the kitchen, voice low but urgent. Mom, please, it's not about excluding him. No, she's not being cruel, Mum. Stop. Please, just stop. When he noticed me, he turned away, shoulders tense. That's when I realized it wasn't just me carrying the guilt. He was splitting himself in two, trying to love both of us without tearing anything apart. A week later, we visited his mum. I almost didn't go, but Andrew said we needed to face this as a couple. She greeted me with a brittle smile. Her house smelled of lavender and old photographs. Mark was there, sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, stacking and restacking toy blocks. He didn't look up when we entered. His hands moved with intense precision, as if the world beyond those blocks didn't exist. Hi, Mark, I said softly. He didn't respond. His mother's eyes flicked to me. He remembers you, you know. He just doesn't always show it. I nodded, unsure what to say. We sat down, and she wasted no time. So, you've decided to exclude him. Andrew took her hand. Mom, it's not about exclusion. It's about logistics, comfort. It's about her, she interrupted, glaring at me. I met her stare. It's about making sure no one's put in a situation that could hurt them. Her eyes softened for a moment, just a flicker, before hardening again. You think you're protecting him, but you're really protecting yourself. The words cut deep because part of me feared they were true. When we left, Mark was still stacking blocks. He looked up briefly, just for a second. His eyes were impossibly clear, and in that second I wondered if he understood everything, every word, every decision that revolved around him. That night I cried in the car. Not out of regret exactly, but out of the unbearable sadness of choosing between love and peace. Andrew held my hand. "We'll figure it out," he whispered, but I wasn't sure we would. The tension didn't ease after that day. If anything, it settled into our lives like a shadow, always present, never quite letting us breathe. Every time Andrew and I talked about the wedding, I could feel the undercurrent of guilt and anger pulling at the edges. We tried to make plans around it, discussing flowers, seating, and music. But those conversations felt hollow, as if someone had removed the foundation from under us. Then the confrontation came. It was late one evening when Andrew's mother showed up at our apartment unannounced. I wasn't expecting her, and the sudden knock at the door made my heart race. I opened it to see her standing there, arms crossed, her expression a careful mix of determination and fury. Behind her, Mark lingered quietly, holding onto the strap of his mother's bag. He didn't make a sound, but I could feel his presence intense, almost magnetic. "Hello," I said cautiously. Her eyes didn't soften. "We need to talk." Andrew stepped forward, trying to mediate. "Mum, we've been over this. I don't want to talk about what you've been over," she snapped. Her voice was sharper than I'd ever heard it. "You've decided to exclude Mark from your wedding, and I am not standing by and letting that happen." I felt my stomach drop. I had anticipated resistance, but not this level of confrontation. "Mum, please," Andrew said, voice tight. "It's not exclusion. It's about making sure the day goes smoothly. You know how intense things can get. Intense." "You mean inconvenient for you?" she shot back. "Do you have any idea what it's like for him to be left out? To never be included in these important moments?" Mark shifted slightly behind her. I could see his hands fidgeting, his gaze darting between us. Even in his quiet, there was an intensity, a sort of unspoken emotion that made the room heavy. I tried to keep my voice calm, measured. "It's not about leaving him out. It's about protecting him and everyone else. Weddings are overwhelming. Crowds, noise, unexpected situations. He might be scared, or he could have a meltdown. I don't want him to be in distress, and I don't want the day ruined for anyone, including him." She laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Ruined? You'd think a few screams or some frustration would ruin a wedding. You think the world revolves around comfort. He deserves to be there, and so do I." Andrew looked torn, his jaw tight. "Mum, I understand, I really do, but no, Andrew. You don't understand," she interrupted, her voice breaking. "I live with this. Every day. I see what it's like for him, and I am telling you, you are making a mistake. And if you go through with it, I will not attend your wedding either." The room went silent. I could feel my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Andrew's face fell. "Mum, I mean it," she said firmly. "If Mark isn't there, I'm not either. And you," she turned to me, "you need to understand that this is not negotiable." I could feel anger and helplessness flooding through me simultaneously. This was no longer just about planning a wedding. It was about loyalty, love, boundaries, and the painful truth that sometimes no choice is without consequence. That night, Andrew and I sat in the dark of our living room, neither of us speaking at first. The weight of his mother's ultimatum pressed down on us. I could see it in Andrew's face, the agony of being torn between his mother, his brother, and his future wife. "I don't know what to do," he admitted quietly. "I don't want to risk anything happening," I said, keeping my voice low. "I want the day to be about us, about our vows, our families celebrating together. I can't imagine looking over my shoulder the whole time, waiting for a meltdown to happen. He ran his hands through his hair, sighing. "I know, but Mum, she's not going to let this go. She'll be hurt, and she'll never forgive me. She might actually skip the wedding. I can't handle that guilt." I reached for his hand. "I understand. Believe me, I do. But this is about making a choice that ensures the day goes smoothly, not about hurting anyone intentionally." We didn't sleep much that night, just sat together in silence, trying to find some way to navigate a maze with no clear exit. The days that followed were a delicate dance. Every phone call from his mother, every discussion about the wedding, felt like stepping on eggshells. She alternated between pleading, guilt-tripping, and furious insistence. Andrew tried to mediate, to find a compromise. But each suggestion, partial attendance, a separate area for Mark. Private moments seemed to fall flat against the immovable wall of her expectations. Meanwhile, Mark remained blissfully unaware of the tension. In his world, the only rules were the ones he could understand and the patterns he could predict. Yet his presence, quiet and constant, loomed over us like a reminder of the stakes. One wrong move, one unpredictable moment, and everything could unravel. I began to realize something else in these tense weeks. The wedding had stopped being just our celebration. It had become a symbol of the impossible choices families must navigate when love, obligation, and personal boundaries collide. Every decision carried a weight that was almost unbearable, and there was no manual for it. No roadmap to avoid hurting someone, somewhere, one evening. Andrew and I took a walk through the park, trying to breathe, trying to remind ourselves of why we were doing all this in the first place. "I just want to enjoy the day," I said finally. "I want to feel happiness, not anxiety or guilt." "I know," he whispered, "and I want that too. But I can't shake the thought of Mum not being there. And Mark." He trailed off. "And Mark," I prompted gently. He shook his head. "I just don't know how to reconcile it. I don't want to hurt anyone, but I also want our wedding to be ours. I want it to be about us, not crises." I squeezed his hand. "Then we make the best choice we can. That's all anyone can do." It didn't solve the problem. Far from it. But it gave us a tiny anchor, something to hold on to amidst the storm of expectations, emotions, and heartbreak. We spent the next weeks trying to reinforce our boundaries while softening the edges for those we loved. I reached out to his mother carefully, trying to explain my perspective, the fears, the practical concerns. She listened, sometimes nodding, sometimes fuming. There were moments when I thought we were bridging the gap, and moments when I wondered if it would ever close. Through it all, Andrew remained in the middle. A man torn between his love for his mother, his brother, and the life we were trying to build together. Watching him navigate it all was heartbreaking and awe-inspiring. I realized that love sometimes isn't enough to erase the complications of human relationships. Sometimes love demands difficult decisions, and sometimes those decisions come at the cost of someone's happiness. By the time the wedding approached, the air between all of us was taut, like a string pulled to its limit. We didn't have resolution, not completely, but we had an understanding, fragile, imperfect, and tense, that we would face the day together, making choices in real time, balancing care, love, and boundaries. And in that fragile understanding, I found a strange kind of hope. The morning of the wedding arrived with the kind of stillness that feels both sacred and terrifying. I woke early, sunlight spilling through the curtains, and for a brief moment Everything seemed possible. The flowers, the music, the faces of everyone we loved gathered in one place. But as I lay there, I couldn't ignore the knot in my stomach, the ever-present anxiety about what might happen. Andrew arrived soon after, carrying coffee in one hand and a nervous smile in the other. He tried to lighten the mood, joking about how I'd spent the previous night obsessively arranging flower vases, but the tension underlined every laugh, every movement. We both knew the stakes. The ceremony venue was bathed in light, soft ivory linens, and the gentle hum of last-minute preparations. Guests began to arrive, and the air buzzed with excitement and love. Yet, beneath it all, a shadow lingered, the question of his brother, and whether his mother would honor her threat to skip the wedding as the music began. I walked down the aisle, each step a meditation in courage. Faces blurred, emotions swelled, and for the first time that day, I felt a sense of fragile control. Andrew waited at the altar, hands trembling slightly as he took mine. In that moment, nothing else existed. The past weeks, the arguments, the fear, all of it was distilled into the simple, powerful act of saying yes to one another. The ceremony passed without incident, a seamless dance of vows, rings, and whispered promises. The audience smiled, some eyes glistening with tears, and for a fleeting moment, I felt the world align exactly as it should. But even as we exchanged rings, part of me was acutely aware of the tension waiting in the wings. Later, during the reception, the first challenge arrived quietly, without warning. A loud crash from the side hall made everyone jump. My heart raced. Andrew's mother appeared shortly after, her face tight, but she didn't say a word. And then I saw Mark, escorted carefully by his caregivers, his eyes wide with curiosity and a hint of fear. He didn't scream. He didn't melt down. Instead, he stood quietly, observing the room, the lights, the music. His mother, holding his hand gently, guided him to a secluded area we had arranged, with soft lighting and minimal noise, a small sanctuary within the chaos. I exhaled, feeling some of the tension lift. Perhaps it wasn't about exclusion or compromise. Perhaps it was about creating space where everyone could exist safely, even if only partially. As the evening unfolded, we saw moments of quiet joy. Mark laughed softly at a joke told by a family friend. He clapped along to the music from a safe distance. It wasn't perfect. There were brief signs of distress, small flinches, moments where he needed reassurance, but each one was managed with care, patience, and love. Watching him, I felt an unexpected sense of clarity. The day wasn't perfect in the way we had imagined it, but it was real, lived, and shared. Boundaries had been respected, compromises made, and, in the process, something beautiful had emerged, a wedding that accommodated the messy, unpredictable, and extraordinary reality of our lives. Andrew and I danced, holding on to each other tightly, aware that the day had tested us in ways we hadn't anticipated. His mother approached, eyes soft, and whispered an apology for her earlier outbursts. I nodded, understanding the intensity of a mother's love and the protective instincts it carried. By the end of the night, the guests had gone home, the lights dimmed, and the soft hum of the after-party settled into silence. We sat together, exhausted but filled with a profound sense of accomplishment. We had navigated the impossible, balancing care, love, and personal boundaries without losing ourselves or each other. Mark slept quietly nearby, safely cared for, a living reminder that love isn't always about ease or simplicity. Sometimes it's about courage, negotiation, and the willingness to embrace complexity without resentment. I realized that the wedding had become more than a celebration of our union. It was a testament to the resilience of relationships under pressure, a narrative of understanding, and the power of compassion in action. Every difficult conversation, every tearful night, and every anxious step had led us here, not to perfection, but to authenticity. As Andrew and I finally rested, hands entwined, I whispered into the quiet of the night, "We did it." He smiled, eyes closing, and said softly, "We really did." And in that moment, surrounded by love, care, and the fragile triumph of understanding, I knew something profound. Love isn't about avoiding hardship. It's about walking through it together, facing the uncertainty, the unpredictability, and coming out the other side not unscathed, but whole. Our wedding had been a crucible, fiery, challenging, and intense, but it had also been a declaration that love, patience, and empathy could coexist with boundaries, anxiety, and fear, that a family could stretch and bend without breaking, that joy, even in imperfect circumstances, is still worth celebrating. As I closed my eyes that night, I imagined a future where we could navigate challenges with the same courage and compassion, where every difficult choice could be approached not with fear or resentment, but with clarity, understanding, and the knowledge that we were in it together, come what may.